He's not, he's wearing a pink mask.
Why do you think I'm wearing a pink
fun.
mask?
Why aren't you wearing the mask when I was paid for you?
Because I wore it out. I wore it so much.
I never thought masks would be a fashion statement.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Rod?
I had to get
Right?
We're good? Okay, Chuck took my gavel. Calling this meeting to order at 3:34, work session to order at 3:34 PM on May 22nd, 2021. Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a roll call, please, sir?
Ms. Combs,
Here,
Mr. Riggs,
Here.
Mr. Smith here, Mr. Swayze,
Here.
Mr. Underwood.
There. Brings us to work session agenda item number 3, the coin flip. You know what, Doc? Since you're wearing a colorful tie, you just caught my eye. You're gonna call it in the air, sir.
Heads.
Heads it is. Would you like to go first or second?
Second, I'm finishing my sandwich.
Okay. Go for it. Sir, if you'd like to take a seat in the hot seat.
In the hot seat.
Does the board have a problem if I take this off for the?
No, sir.
All right.
In fact, you'll probably see us cycling in and out of it as we go. So you're probably gonna get different flavor of question. I hope,
Why do you?
than you've been getting in the past. So again, I don't envision us having to put a time limit on any of the answering of the questions. We do not have a 3-minute elevator speech planned at the end. But we can certainly entertain the idea of, letting you have a one final word scenario. So the first question, we solicited questions from interim superintendent, department heads, and the board. This is a compilation of questions from those sources.
Sure.
So first question is a 2-part question. Where do you currently live? And do you plan on moving closer or into the district? And if so, where?
I currently live in Florissant, Colorado. It's about an hour and a half away. I do plan on moving. Is there housing in the district right now? I do plan on moving down here as close as I can get to the district.
Okay.
Unless you've got a room, in which case I'd be happy to rent it.
I just got rid of my tenant. I really don't want another one. Besides, that probably wouldn't be good. Superintendent and the board president cohabitating.
Probably not.
Might make things more efficient.
Might upset the community.
But I don't think it would be good. All right. So, yeah, sure, absolutely. If anyone has a follow-up question, remember it's got to be on point to the question. But if you have a follow-up question, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
if you are looking to move closer, what's your time frame on
As soon as I can.
that? Okay.
I mean, my wife is still teaching up in Lake George, so I will try to see her as often as I can on the weekends.
So you're looking to commute still up there and.
Well, just to, yeah, say hi.
Okay.
But yeah, I will be down here for sure during.
But not moving.
No, I don't plan on moving. We're gonna hang on to the house. It's a beautiful house. I just,
Any other follow-ups?
Yeah, I just have a follow-up. Knowing that this was moving to this progression to this point, is there a reason why you hadn't already looked into the availability of housing?
Oh, I have.
Or were, okay, because just the way that you present this, is there housing available?
No.
It appeared as that.
I couldn't find anything in the district.
Okay, fair enough.
The closest I could find was maybe one place in Falcon. So then we drove out, we timed it, we saw how far, how quick, security, wide field. As far as southern Colorado Springs, housing is tough right now.
Yeah, especially
And
if you're renting
expensive.
and not
Especially if you're
buying.
renting.
Yeah, so it's.
Okay, I just want to clear that up. 'cause-
Sure. No, I've been looking.
Oh, good deal, good deal.
All right, so, next question, again, two-parter. Do you know the financial condition of the district and how would you describe it? How would you characterize it?
My understanding of the financial situation of the district, and I haven't gone deep into the financials, is that you've made some progress in adding to your fund balance. And it looks like you're going to be able to hire a principal, a single superintendent, and still be able to hire a principal as opposed to what you've been doing, and still add to your fund balance. I know that in my last district, we raised our fund balance to the point where I was able to reduce our mill levy override and refund some of those taxes back to our constituents. I think it's important that you get the balance where it needs to be, and then you spend the money on the kids. And if you don't need to spend the money on the kids, then you should be reducing the tax burden on your community. That may have been a little bit off point, but it looks like you guys are moving in the right direction, I guess would be the way I would phrase it.
Okay. Any follow-ups?
So you mentioned mill levies.
We had a mill levy override.
Do an override.
Yeah.
Are you aware we have no override?
I'm not aware
Okay.
completely. Do you have a bond for the new school
Or
or?
do we have a bond for
Yeah.
the buildings that's soon to be
Couple of years.
4 years gone?
Fantastic.
Any other follow-ups?
Yeah, I do like the idea of giving the money back to the community. Did you feel that everything was already had attention to, buses, everything before making that decision of getting the money back? Or,
You know, we had done an amazing job in Branson because we were so far away from, we had staff housing. So if teachers needed housing, superintendent housing, principal housing, we had remodeled a lot of the housing there when I got there. We had added the security features that we didn't have. I got a $600,000 grant from the Department of Public Safety to add security features, cameras, different things that we needed out there to secure the school. When I got there, people were just walking in off the road, wherever, just showing up in classrooms, because that's the way it had always been done, right? I mean, you walked into the school in the 1920s. I mean, it had a lot of heft to it, right? It had a lot of history to feel the weight of that. But we needed to kind of bring that in. So we had taken care of that. We had taken care of a lot of things, but we had gotten to the point where we were adding to our fund balance at a rate where, for me, it was, we either need to spend this or we need to reduce what we're taking from our community members. So,
Okay.
so we reduced that.
thank you.
We didn't eliminate it,
Right.
because once you eliminate it, it's
It's gone, it's gone forever.
but we reduced it.
So then what you're saying is that when they went and got the mill levy passed, there was language in there that made it variable, that they could vary.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fixed dollar amount. So that dollar amount then was divided among acreage or property values, right? So we were advised, even if you're only going to take it down to $100, don't get rid of it in case you need it again, because then you'd have to go through the whole process.
Right. Understand. Everybody good? Moving on. All right. It's another one of these tricky ones. Not a fan of these types of questions, but apparently this is the way we're supposed to ask questions in interviews in modern day. Provide an example of when your ethics were tested and how you handled it.
You know, that's a tough question, because when somebody challenges my ethics, or there's something that it doesn't pass the smell test, I'm straightforward and right up front. This isn't there. And for me, that's not a challenge to my ethics. That's a conversation saying, hey, look, are you aware of how this looks? Are you aware of how this might not be perceived? Like renting from the school board president. Initially, no, but yes, that would potentially be an ethical conflict. Absolutely, right? Especially for the rest of the board members who, hey, we don't have access to them in the middle of the night. So to me, I think ethics are the place where you put it out there and you say, we can't do this, right? So I think that even if there's ever a disagreement with the school board, it's not necessarily an ethics, it's a directional situation, because we wouldn't be here if we weren't ethical people. Does that answer that sufficiently for you? Or would you like me to dig a little deeper?
I mean, yeah, I don't know that I had a particular outcome or answer in mind to the question.
He actually answered it in his previous one in regards to the returning the mill levy override. To me, that was an ethics thing.
That was her question.
Okay.
He knew that. He was looking right at me.
Any follow-ups on this?
No, I think once you have your standards in place, it's very simple to say, no, we're not even gonna breach that. I mean, like, I respect that.
Mrs. Swayze, you've been quiet. You good?
I'm good.
All right. What do you specifically see as your roles and responsibilities regarding the budget and planning process for the district?
I should be working hand in hand with my business manager. We have to sit down and we have to look line item by line item. Here's the thing, your budget changes. It usually, barring big ticket items, they don't change from year to year, right? I mean, you've got some things that are going to go up, and so you work with your business manager. Okay, what do we have? Where is this going? And so you make those adjustments. Where you make the biggest impact is when, for instance, our insurance in Branson went through the roof after the hailstorm.
Those did, so did ours.
So we started looking, and we found an agent out of Colorado Springs who found an insurance policy through Gladfelter, which is nationwide. And his explanation to us as to why we were able to bring that down so much, or he was able to bring our insurance down so much compared to the trust, was that, look, the trust is just Colorado. This insurance company is nationwide. So they spread that risk out nationwide so they can get us a better rate. So I took that to the board and said, look, here's a difference of $20,000 a year. What do you want to do? Now that makes a big difference in the budget. We did a similar thing with our health insurance, where when we left the trust, we went with a front range employee benefits organization. So for me, I'm always looking at how we can save the money. right? And sometimes that's a systems analysis where we're looking at, can we do it better for less? Sometimes it's a situation where we were driving the bus everywhere, even if we had 5 or 6 kids. So it was more cost effective initially to buy a Suburban. And then we even had smaller group where we were sending a teacher out with 3 kids for like FFA. It was like, well, let's get a smaller car because it is going to be so much less expensive to drive that across the plains to, Lamar. And it's just looking at the different ways that we can do things to save money. And ultimately that's one of my main jobs, is to keep an eye on where the money's going. The flip side of that is the income, right? And just like in any business, you've got your income, you've got your expenses. The income part, I've gone and I've advocated with the school finance committee. I argued that, frankly, pardon my language, rural school districts were getting hosed. And, Denver school districts were stealing my teachers because they could double their salary and I couldn't match that. And it was not okay. And they needed to do something about it. Well, I don't know. Did they listen? Yeah, they seemed interested. Did it change? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe we got our rural money that we might not have gotten. But, I make those arguments. Or I looked for grants. I needed a whole security system put in at my school. Well, we're not paying $600,000. So not for 80 kids. So I had to go find that money. The Department of Public Safety had that. So I have to keep my eye open for the grant opportunities as well, which, as your business manager knows, is a whole nother layer of reporting and things you have to pay attention to. You not only have to write the grant, you have to then report how the funds are spent. So it's a burden on the central office. But if it means that we get money that our kids need, then you do that, because you find a way, whatever it takes.
Any follow-up?
That is our central office.
I told her that if I got the job, she's my best friend.
She loves it though. She loves it though.
And she's good.
Very good.
All right. So if you are selected to be our superintendent, what would be your process for taking over the helm?
How long is Mr. Mick going to be here?
Can I answer that?
Nope. His contract expires June 30th.
I know, but he might take off earlier than that for vacation purposes. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with him and talk to him about those systems that he has had in place. It is clear that he has a heart. I would beg him to stay, except I know that if he would, I wouldn't get this job. No, I would beg him to stay for you guys anyway. I mean, you guys, he clearly did an amazing job for you over this past year, especially stepping in when Schmidt left. I don't know what happened there, but regardless, that's a tough situation for someone to be put in, and he rose to that. And based on everything that I heard him say, and I read, he's done an amazing job of putting things in place that I don't want to change. So I need to know what those are. To add insult to injury or salt in the wound, my understanding is your AP is also leaving as well. So your AP AD is gone. So you've got a brand new leadership structure moving in here with just, one school level
One
administrator sticking
administrator
around.
staying.
Yeah.
Everyone else is moving.
So that team has to be built, and I'm going to need help from the rest of the team to get there, right? I mean, I can't just walk in and say, hey, I'm the guy in charge. I need to know who's here, who are we relying on, where do we step in, how do we fill this position, who do we fill it with? And unless you guys have started the principal process already, and I didn't see that fly, okay.
We have, sir. In fact,
Outstanding.
it's completed.
It's done. Well, I need to meet with them too, or her. So, you know, we need to start making plans. So that would be my number one. I gotta learn and understand the systems and the culture of Hanover.
Follow-ups.
Yes, I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
What would, if you were chosen, what would be your current availability to be able to come shadow our outgoing superintendent prior to the contract beginning?
I would need to get a place, and I will start on that immediately.
Well, by availability, I mean, are you currently?
No, I'm not under contract. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm available.
Okay, that's the key. I never want to take away from one school.
No, I understand that, and I appreciate that. There's ethics again. So, yeah, I
Exactly.
couldn't do that, right? Unless I was taking my vacation
Right.
to end it.
I
But,
wouldn't ask you to do
no, I understand. So, yeah, I would love to have that opportunity.
Thank you.
That was kind of where I was going with, what's he doing? Is he leaving? How long is he gonna be here?
Anything else? Ed, you good? I'm good. Danielle?
Well, since you brought it up about the principal, not that it happens in every district, but a lot of times you'll see superintendents, they want to have their guy or their gal in place. Knowing that we have just brought in a principal, what is your philosophy on that of, hey, we're gonna work together as a team, or I don't want to assume that someone would say right off the bat, hey, if I get this job, you're gonna be my principal, I'm gonna put my people in place.
Here's my philosophy on that. And when I heard Mr. Mick say that, I was very much yelling at my computer screen going, no. You guys know Hanover. You know who a good fit's going to be. I have to trust you that you have made that decision with the help of somebody who's already there, who knows what is needed, right?
Well, it was actually Tim that did it, since we don't,
No, I understand,
we don't
But-
know.
but that's important for me. And I was like, no, Tim, pick the guy, because you'll pick the right guy. And I won't, and you don't want to put somebody who is going to be a culture clash person. And I don't know the culture yet. I mean, I understand rural, but each district is different, right? I love the fact that you guys have goals for your superintendent. That's awesome, right? Hey, here's what we'd like you to do. Fantastic. I can say that's refreshing and something I was not getting. Thank you.
I think you'll find us to be heavy on the feedback.
I love the feedback.
Any other follow-ups? No? Sir, how do you see the chain of command operating in a district of this size?
Okay. That's a real personality question. If you have, I like feedback. I like feedback from you guys. I like feedback from parents. I like feedback from students. I like feedback from anybody. Having said that, it is important that the board does not become the sounding board for complaints about the district. Not that you don't hear them, but they need to be referred back down and work their way through the chain. Just like if a parent comes to me and says, I'm really having a problem with this teacher, my first question is going to be always, have you spoken to that teacher? Because if you haven't, you need to start there. I am a big fan of communication, and I believe that if you get two people in a room to sit down and have a conversation, they will work it out, because it's the he said, she said that gets you every single time. So you redirect it. Well, I talked to the teacher. Okay, well, have you talked to the principal? And that's where I see chain of command being effective. That in no way, shape, or form should make it seem like I don't want people telling you things that just, as an aside, we're having a conversation at the ball game. By the way, and then you guys tell me, that's fine. I don't have a problem, with people talking to principal. That's fine, as long as it's a communication thing and not a, yip, let's tear things down. If it's being constructive, I would almost rather not have that. I'd rather have a principal who says, hey, look, a teacher came to you and told you about this thing and you said, yeah, let's do it. I would rather have a principal that for the most part is like, now I'm not going to accept that and say yes without talking to my principal, but who's like, that sounds so awesome. Let's see what happens. That we're a team, we're working together. The A team, right? Your administrative team should be working together. And it shouldn't be about stepping on toes where chain of command is concerned. But when we're dealing with complaints or discipline, or that needs to work its way up and down. Just for instance, if a parent comes to you and says, what this teacher did was unacceptable, you still have to say, and you may hear it and go, what's going on in that classroom? You still got to refer it back. And here's why. You guys legally are the appeals court. You can't damage your impartiality, right? So even if it comes to me, I've got to go, oh, that's not good. Have you talked to the principal about that? We've got to throw it back because I'm the appeals court. I guess you'd be the Supreme Court, but I'm the appeals, right? So they can appeal it to me if they're not happy. So we have to keep that chain of command intact for those reasons. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Okay.
All right, here's another topic. Describe your decision-making process. Oh, I'm sorry, were there any follow-ups on that one, previous one? Not bad.
I think you got it.
All right, describe your decision-making process and how your personality type plays a role in it.
Well, that's a little vague. You know, I have no problem making decisions and being the final call guy. But I have learned a long time ago that if you talk to somebody about a decision and it's talked with a group, that you get a greater level of buy-in rather than dictating. So when I'm making decisions, for me, I need as many data points from the people who understand what we're trying to make a decision about. And for me to bounce back counterpoints back at them to see if it holds up in order for us to come to a consensus decision and move forward. Now that can sometimes sound wishy-washy, and I don't mean it to sound that way, because I can say, no, this is what we need to do, right? If this is a Title IX issue, it's cut and dried. If the boys have a team, the girls have a team, this is how it's going to be, right? This is what the law says. That's fine. But if we're talking about, for instance, curriculum, science teacher comes up and says, hey, I have a new science curriculum I would like the district to buy. This is getting old. I'd really like it. I'm going to say, well, let's see the curriculum you want. All right, now I want you to go grab a couple more, and we're going to take that to the DAC, and we're going to let them read through it, and we're going to let the kids look at it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to decide what's the best based on the feedback from you as the teacher, from the students, and from the parents, and from the principal, so that we get a lot of people who have looked at this and we say, yeah, this is a good choice. This is a good decision for me to say, hey, let's go to the board and spend 20 grand on a new curriculum, right? So we have to make sure, for me, for my decision-making process, is I like to hear what other people are thinking about it, especially the people that it's going to affect. Because if we can get buy-in on whatever it is, it's going to be more successful. You should never try to ram a round peg into a square hole. It's got to fit.
All right, any follow-ups? No, all right. Here's a really vague one for you. What do you know about the elementary school world?
Well, my wife is an elementary school teacher for 15 years. She taught 2nd through 5th. I was there every day, and anyone who's a spouse knows that you, by osmosis, learn a lot of things from your spouse. I was the K-12 principal in Branson, so I supervised elementary teachers as well. I implemented the early literacy grant. We changed reading curriculums, ELA curriculums while I was there. I mean, that's where you can make an amazing impact, and it's easier to see the light bulbs in elementary. It's easier, they're more excited. And that's really the culture you want to kind of bring to the high school. If you can get high school kids excited about learning and not, yeah, I'm on the honor roll, it was easy, they should be ashamed of that. They should be proud of that. They should be excited about that. And they should be excited about the light bulbs going off at high school as well. So that's what I know about elementary. I know the curriculum. I'm a licensed elementary teacher. It's on my teaching license as well. I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. All right, here's a 3-parter. How do you plan on using your previous experiences to build culture, relationships and trust, and support academic growth and achievement? And technology.
Sure. So I think we're all a product of our experience. And I've grown a lot as a leader. I started out at 18 as a manager of Domino's Pizza. I started my business, Legal Express, when I was, 25. We took that statewide. And I was a much different leader then than I am now because of the experience. And one of my best coaches in leadership was my daughter. Why she told me this ever, I have no idea. But when she was in high school and she had done something, and as fathers are wont to do, I was yelling at her. In my best management, I'm the boss. She said, Dad, what? You do know that when you start yelling, I don't hear a word you say. You understand that the thing that really gets me in the heart is when you quietly explain to me what I did wrong and how it disappointed you. That's when I want to make a change. Still kind of chokes me up every time I hear that, because rarely in life do you have a mirror shoved in your face that says, this isn't the right way, dude. You need to change. And from that day on, I did. And I've been making that change ever since. So building culture is about making relationships. Achievement is important. But achievement is a symptom of the culture, right? We have to get kids excited about what they're doing. They have to find passion in what they're doing. They have to know why they're doing what they're doing and how it's going to affect them in the future. I don't know why I'll ever need chemistry. No, dude, I can tell you, I was flipping through the TV the other night, and there was this girl who decided that she was going to cut a couple of steps. So she mixed ammonia and bleach together. Yeah, so the thing caused like mustard gas to destroy. It was horrible. They had to evacuate her whole place of business. Really? Why? Well, let's talk about the chemistry behind that. Right? There's reasons why we teach what we teach, or we shouldn't be teaching it, right? I mean, why are we teaching it if it's not going to make a difference to anybody ever? If it is, we should be able to tell them why it matters. So it's about a passion and connecting with each student and developing that culture. Because if our teachers are passionate and our kids are passionate, achievement comes. It'll be there because they're excited about learning. I was watching another part of my experience that I would share with any one of my teachers, any one of my students. I was watching Drew Barrymore the other day. I don't know if you guys know who she is. She was in ET. She was a fire starter. Did you know she was emancipated at the age of 14? Emancipated because her parents were getting her drunk and stoned at the age of 8. And she went to a judge and said, look, I got all this money, man. I should be on my own. What I heard her say the other day, which I thought was amazing, she said, yeah, so I was emancipated at 14. I was an adult by everyone's account. And I realized I don't know anything. I better start learning. I better start figuring stuff out. This is a 14-year-old girl who has decided that I better do everything I can to learn because it's going to make a difference in my life down the road, right? It's there, and we just have to believe in them. And we have to create that culture of believing in them and that trust that our people are going to do that for our kids. I hope that answered everything. It was a three-parter.
Yeah, it certainly was. Okay, now this is a long question. As you may be aware, Universal Pre-K is coming to Colorado in the 2023-2024 school year. With that in mind, describe your experience in early childhood education, and if none, what is your understanding of appropriate development for preschoolers?
Yeah, we did not have pre-K in Branson. I can tell you that I am a learner and a researcher at heart, and I will make sure that we have the facilities. I know that the law that they were trying to pass, and I got to tell you, I don't know whether it passed. They were trying to take away, and this has been the biggest problem with preschool, is you've got education and you've got the state both trying to deal with licensing and they were trying to say, hey, for the schools, let's just let them handle it through the Department of Education. I know they were trying. I don't know if it passed. I hope it did, because having to jump through two sets of hoops is tough. So we're going to need to make sure that we have the facilities to handle it. The curriculum,
I hope they will fund it at a level that we can pay a decent wage for these teachers, because they are amazing in what they do and getting a real jump start for these kids going into kindergarten. That's about what I would tell you. And I would be working obviously with my administrator over the program.
Follow-up to anyone?
You good at working with teachers that are in pre-K? We got two of the best.
That's fantastic. It takes a special person
It
to
does.
teach that, you know. And if you find them, you treat them like gold. Because pre-K, kindergarten, they're just different to the point where sometimes they don't relate to us as well, right? Which is fine. I just need you to work well with the kids. I need the kids to be happy and healthy and learning.
Good.
Storm. All right, so Hanover is an SCAP district. Describe your thoughts on our strategic priority placements and how would you support these priorities? And what leadership changes would you initiate in the next 3 years?
I have done some research on the SCAP, and the essence of the SCAP is that it is a grassroots. You know, it turns evaluations of schools upside down, and you start at the bottom and work your way up and say, here's what we need. I don't plan on making any changes up front because I think that you've had someone in place to do that. I would like to know more and get some training on the SCAP as far as where I can go with that and how I can help lead that, I guess would be a better way to say that. We were not under SCAP in Branson, but I do know that SCAP is similar to kind of what we had in Las Vegas, where you would get accredited every year. We had the Northwest accreditation who would come in and do a review, but you're doing that every year. You've got a team that is actually doing that analysis and looking at those numbers, and you're trying to put forward that to the state board as opposed to what the testing is. And I've never been a big fan of a single test saying yay or nay. It's much better to have something that is rolling where you can show growth and you can show here's what's going on in our school.
Pardon me, I'm taking a note.
Sure.
All right, this is a very long one also. Hanover has developed an instructional, assessment, response to intervention, multi-tiered support system, public learning community platform to enhance vertical discussions and support across the district. Describe your experience in leadership with these items and how you would facilitate next year's practices for our faculty and staff growth.
I kind of mentioned some of this before. I think it's important that you have those discussions, those vertical alignment, those discussions. And it's kind of like teacher evaluations. I'm not a huge fan of the philosophy that uses Randa as a club to beat teachers into submission. If Randa is used properly and similar to the RTI, and it should be a team growth opportunity. It should be a, hey, what do you think you need to work on this year? How can I support you on that? Where do you want to take this? How do you want to get better? How do you want to hone your craft? Or for the student, how would you like, what can I do to make it better for you? If we're talking RTI, you're looking at individual items. Like in Branson, we would take the NWEA, and I made sure that every student and every parent got a copy of that every time we took that test. Because the NWEA, unlike the state test, would actually say, hey, here's some weak points. And it would test a student right up until they couldn't take the test anymore, right? So it was a dynamic test. It changed with every student. So they would keep getting more and more questions. And then you could say, okay, here's their strengths, here's their weaknesses. And it would even give you some ideas on things that the student could work on for their weaknesses to build it up, right? So that long question is almost like a school improvement plan, right? And it should kind of be built back into your SCAP, where you're trying to say, hey, look, can we work on exactly what the curriculum looks like for each grade level and how it supports the next level, so that the teachers are aware of how it supports, as well as the students are aware of why they're learning it, because what they're moving on towards, right? If you look at it in a high school classroom, you're looking at an objective, or sometimes you call that an essential question on the board, that today we're going to learn this, and this is what we're trying to answer. This is what you're trying to learn today, so that a student understands, okay, this is where my mindset needs to be and what I'm looking for. The education process in a district is so complex, and that's why you've got your data compared to your instruction. How are you assessing it? How are you supporting it? So I guess ultimately it needs to be a team situation. So you have to listen to your players, right? You have to listen to your teachers, and you have to find out, what do they know? Where do they need to go? Where do they want to go? What do they want to work on? Because you should be honing your craft every year. You should be trying to get better every year.
Any follow-ups? All right, just two more, sir.
Sure.
Have you been contacted by any community members since you submitted your application for this position? And if so, how would you characterize the nature of the interactions?
I have not.
Okay,
I mean, beyond the search committee.
Fine.
And those conversations.
all right. This is probably our craziest question, and it's the last one.
All right.
All egos require gratification. What satisfies your ego?
Talking to my future bosses, this is what I would say. I want to know what I'm doing right. I want to know where I can improve, and I want advice on how I can do it and what I can do. We're all the same, from grandpa down to pre-K, right? We're just people, and we need to be told when we're doing things well. And we don't need to be hit on the head when we're doing things wrong. We need to be said, hey, look, are you aware XYZ, right? And here's some things that maybe might help with that, or here's how you can connect with whoever it might be, right? I just want to be known as the guy that left a place better than he found it. And it feels like I'm walking into a high bar situation. So my work's cut out for me. That doesn't mean that I don't try to leave it better than I found it. So I just want to know what I can do. I set a lot of my ego aside when I decided I truly just want to be a servant. I'm not in this for the act of, I just want to help. And I just want people, as much of an ego as that is, to know that I have a heart to want to help. That would help my ego the most. I know I want to be.
Follow? All right, sir. Last chance. Oh, free form right now.
Free form. Well, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to the 2021 Hunger Games. May the odds be ever in your favor. I meant what I said earlier. I want this to be a good fit. If you don't think I'm a good fit, please don't hire me. I will do my best for you. I'm not perfect. And I would like it on record to say that I never claimed to be perfect. But you will not find malice in my heart if I make a mistake. It will be with the best of intentions, whatever it is. I love rural schools. I love rural kids. And there just is a heart that is so impressive. And I was never prouder than the fact that over half of my kids in Branson took a bus an hour each way to come to our school because they felt it was better. That is the highest praise that a superintendent can ever have. Because we had another, the Kim where we co-opted with was another hour farther. So those kids were getting up at 5 and they weren't getting home till 10 and they were still on the roll because they loved our school and what we stood for. And I would love to be a part of that here. And it feels like you guys are already there. So I just want to be along for the ride.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Do you want me to stick around or do you want me to,
That's completely up to you. I mean, I have to imagine there'll be opportunities for some informal social interaction afterwards in the
okay.
conference room.
Sure. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I'll walk back with you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This calm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is your wife looking for a job?
Well, she's with Lake George right now.
Is it a charter school out there?
Pardon?
Is it a charter school in Lake George?
It's a charter school, but it's a charter school because Park County's in Fairplay, an hour and a half
Okay,
away.
Yeah.
So when they said, we want to make this public school a charter school, the board went, oh, yeah, knock
Yeah.
yourself out. That'd be fantastic.
Okay. Thank you.
If you guys want to take a little restroom break, that's
We get a
fine.
recess?
Yeah, but it's a work session, so we don't have to vote or anything.
I'm at recess like the kids, gonna go play in the
Yeah,
mud.
go play outside, Dwight. Go play in the mud.
We still are recording, so our mics are hot. So
Water in under the doors over there.
Oh, it
as
did?
much as I don't want it, I need
Oh,
this rain in my
great.
house.
Just what we need, water in under the doors. Get everything wet.
Yeah, water in over here. Guess I gotta check and see if my new window leaked, huh?
Yeah, that's a good idea. See if your room's floating.
So Ed, what kind of damage did our buses get?
They cut off some catalytic converters and broke a couple doors and stole the maintenance truck.
They stole the maintenance truck.
Yeah, used it to ram the gate.
How they started? Hot wired?
They had to hotwire it.
So does the maintenance truck come back or?
No, it's gone.
No, they threw all the catalytic converters, everything in the back of it. They threw the aerator for the
Yeah,
football field
aerator.
that goes on the back of the John Deere in
Yeah,
there. They
yeah.
stole a couple of trickle chargers.
Wow.
They were in that shed there.
Catalytic
But I
converters,
I could see the footage of them driving the truck through the gate.
Yeah.
Just can't get a clear image of the face in there.
To me, they had to have known what we had and what was out there and when thing was going on. Every time we've been hit, Chuck has been out of state.
So if we know
So
somebody that's
somebody-
offering aeration services.
Yeah, somebody is keeping track.
Well,
of
they're
what's going
hitting,
on.
the catalytic converter thing is statewide.
Yeah, that's true.
Really?
Yeah, because I called my
Yeah, they're
daughter.
telling them.
who-
It was not hail, I don't think, was it?
What?
It wasn't hail.
Got
was it?
nervous about the
No,
video.
no.
She had her little phone with all the little red colors. I was like, what is all that?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, my wife loves her.
Yeah, there was other
Doesn't she have a
districts.
the Waze app or something, the?
There was
Yeah,
other,
she has a paid weather app, so she
Storm
has really
chasers.
sophisticated weather radar app.
Catalytic converters they want. It
It's
wasn't
Storm
just-
Chaser.
Just to be
No,
malicious.
no, it's Cadillac Diverts, because they're really high in price right now.
Well, and there's platinum in them too.
Yeah,
so-
that's what I mean.
Yeah. And.
The
but
charter
when I-
school by the police
So if
station
you
got
are
hit.
familiar with ham radio at all,
That's right by the
Little?
police station.
Well, technically,
So
I'm
the-
here for emissions.
the storm chasers.
We're on
That's
this
what my
side of the
husband
space.
said. My
When they get their
husband said
radio
it's
license,
nice in
they get
This side of Payton
WX
Highway has to have it.
as the first two letters in their call sign
Right.
for weather.
Yes.
And when
So we
she
just
got her
put a
ham
lot of
radio
bus bars
license,
on that
she
side.
changed the one that they give you by default.
Okay.
So she's got her WX.
Oh.
That's how much my wife loves.
She was looking at it every 2 seconds.
Finish the job. is because
Making
they
you
broke
nervous. You're already
two,
nervous, right? She
five
just
layers
added
of
to it.
sawzall, And they
Ooh.
broke the two blades.
It's
Oh,
like-
her? Oh, yeah, I heard all this noise. I'm like,
It was like 3:26 in the morning.
Yeah, but you probably get some bad storms in your way.
we
Up in Peyton.
did, and we
Yeah.
had
You know, we
the
need to get some,
open house.
German Shepherd.
Kindergarten open house in the
thought about
tornado.
I
We had to
told
bring
her
everybody in
about
the bathroom.
pit bull.
Oh,
Welcome to our school.
wow.
Come in the bathroom.
No worries, though.
No worries. And we had to wait in there for like 30
My
minutes. or
neighbor's got
so.
Constantine
wow.
wire on sale. And we-
It was.
Well, and but what is, are we,
Crazy
what,
weather.
with our insurance, is our insurance gonna have an issue with that? We just need to.
It might.
Cause I'm all over the Constantine,
Oh, that'd be-
Serpentine wire, but yeah.
With the electricity
Yes, absolutely.
along the top wire.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. You run your.
220?
Whatever we can get out there. You put the barbed wire, you don't face it this way, you face it this way.
Right, outward.
No, inward.
Inward.
So they can't climb over it as easy. Inward, it's harder to climb over.
Right.
You can get a big dog too.
And then, if it's facing into what you're protecting, it's actually harder to climb. And then you put it, you're on a hot wire on top of that.
Well, that was my.
You
thing.
got no video surveillance on that area?
It's not,
Yes.
it's not as, it's there, but it's not
I know.
CSI style. You know, the
That's the
movie's
same
live.
thing we had in our school. We're like, what's that blob?
The
Well,
the
there's
movie's
All right,
live.
are we
two
ready?
blobs.
We're ready.
We're ready. Dr. Rosser, if you take the hot seat.
Oh, over there.
Yep,
Oh, I think he needs stuff for all of his stuff here.
So sorry. Ed.
there's a little,
You have a little podium, little.
Yeah.
lecture.
you
He
can,
has a whole shebang.
you can feel free to take that stuff over there if you want. If it'll fit.
I'll try. I got my daddy's hat from the.
Yeah, I
For
noticed
good
that.
luck. I dig it. That's awesome.
All right.
All right. I guess we'll just jump right into it. So where do you currently live? And do you plan on moving? And if so, where?
I currently live in Peyton. Just on Peyton Highway over at the Curtis Road and
Oh,
Highway,
yeah.
Falcon Highway a little bit to get here, about 40 some odd minutes away. And I had looked into the property on Hanover Road because I was thinking about moving there, but I think it was like pending sale. So I know Fountain's closer, so I was thinking about trying to get closer. I'm considering all that.
Any follow-up?
Well, 45 minutes, a lot of our students are that far away.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
You don't live that far.
no.
And then, it's just Peyton Highway right there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
You're really down the street.
Yeah.
Long street.
Literally, I'm down the street.
Yeah, long street, but you're down the street.
It is. I saw a pronghorn on my way. That was kind of cool.
We've got a lot.
You had mentioned you have two daughters.
Yes.
Would you be interested in possibly bringing them to the district?
I'm divorced right now, so they currently attend school in Parker, which I visit them.
Oh, okay,
in
okay,
Parker.
okay.
I always wanted them in my school with me. But right now, I don't know if I would have that kind of pool.
Okay.
But I would.
No, I understand completely.
We co-parent very well.
That's awesome.
Really well. I see them every Wednesday for dinner. It's Food Pie Wednesday at Village
Doing
Inn.
it. They have the best pie too.
Yes, especially the European truffle. And then I see them every weekend on their Saturday soccer games and stuff like that. And I'd love to coach them again. I used to coach some basketball. And I'd love to coach them sometime. I do actually, when I have them, go out and teach them stuff, volleyball, soccer.
Nice.
We do a lot of sports together.
Bring them to the sports game too.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to see 6-man football. I think that's gonna be fun.
The
There we
rules
go.
kind of mess with you at first, but it's fun.
I can't wait.
All right. Do you know the financial condition of the district and how would you describe it?
From the research I've done, I would tell you that it is different than what you handle at a building level. And so a lot of what I would do in the very beginning is spend a lot of time with Pat, getting my orientation, because she'd be kind of the expert in the district's finances. What I researched showed me your income, where it comes from, showed me your expenditures and where that comes from. So like my initial response was, why are we spending $188,000 a year on interest? And then I talked to one of my friends who's a superintendent, because I have a network of people that I talk to about this kind of stuff. And they were saying that that is interest on a bond, and those are things that are already set in your schedule. You don't have to worry about them. Because I'm the kind of guy that I don't like debt. I want everything to be paid off. I don't like debts. But he said it's a whole different situation because it's a bond. So for me, I would want to look at where the leverage points are in the budget in order to get us to a healthy place. I know oftentimes the state will cut funding mid-year and you have to make all these adjustments. Your board policy talks about what to do in an emergency situation. So that's already been defined what the steps will take. In an emergency, there's gonna be a slight reduction in everybody's salary. I read about that. I read through all of your fiscal policies, actually. So those are the guidelines that I would follow: the annual audit, the quarterly statements, making sure the monthly we have all of our ducks in a row in terms of expenditures, paperwork, receipts. And I know that can be a headache for offices sometimes when people aren't following through with getting all their things in on time. But so I felt like there wasn't any red flags at this point, but I'm still new at learning your budget situation.
Follow up. None?
No.
All right. Provide an example of when your ethics were tested and how you handled it.
Okay. I'm not really coming up with this idea yet, but let me get a minute to think through ethics.
Sure.
When someone would have tested my ethics. I'm gonna give you a story. I'm gonna give you a story that I believe could be the ethics. In a small school, there's a tight-knit community when you look at your staff. My role as a principal is to ensure that every student's getting the best education possible in a safe environment where they feel connected and loved and cared for, but they're growing and learning academically. So there's an ethical question when it comes to sometimes popularity versus doing my job. If you upset one member in a small building, you can upset the whole staff. So for me, when I found a popular member of the staff was not meeting my expectations for instruction, I had a question of ethics. Am I going to do what I think will help me remain in a popular position, or am I going to do what I think is right for the kids? This has happened throughout my career. And so I took a hit in popularity, but I did what I believe is right. So I confronted the teacher, was open to investing and building in the teacher, but from the responses that I got, I'm trying to keep everything HR, protected, no identities and all that. But due to the responses, I felt it was important to make a tough call and non-renew someone, and I don't like to do that. I'm trying to think if there's a more direct one. But as a man of integrity, I don't think I've had to face people trying to manipulate me or use me in a way that wouldn't be ethical. So I've never had someone offer me money or I've always tried to create systems that protect the system. Because when you are working in a school, you're not, I'm not Dr. Rock, I'm a representative of this district. And so I want everything to be, you can scrutinize everything that I do and I'm gonna represent the district well. So I don't know if there's if you want to prompt me with a follow-up question, I can try to come up with one. If there's something specific.
The one way I want to prompt you and follow up, I just legally can't.
Can I ask him a question?
Sure. As long as it's around the ethics.
It is. I'm one of your coaches.
Okay.
And I approach you and tell you that I really have to have more money.
Okay,
I have to have more money. Would you consider giving me a stipend some way, make it up, make up a stipend, no, give it to me because I keep the uniforms clean. Would you do that?
no.
Thank you.
The thing is this, if you have a genuine need, there are channels that we go through to get extra funding. The board has policies for how we relate to vendors, et cetera, right? So we would follow the path that was already established in the fiscal policy. For example, my daughter in school, the art teacher will send home a flyer that says, if you want to buy your daughter's art, so-and-so, go to this company, it's been vetted by the district. I can buy her art and some of those proceeds will now go to the art program, but it's all above board. It's not me making a random decision that doesn't have any backing by the board. For me, there are, so what I want to tell you is if a coach came with a need, I want to be able to say, hey, let's look at our options, but they've got to be options that are taxpayer approved, board approved, and we can be creative, but it has to not be just you and me in some back room talking.
Well, I also think where his direction is coming from as well is not only the coach, but he's also a board member. His position as a coach and board member have any weight on that. So
No board member, just straight up coach.
It
But I'm
wouldn't,
saying
it wouldn't be,
Yeah.
because in
No,
my
it was just
mind-
simply that, yeah.
In my mind, that seems like there is a lack of integrity, and I cannot live with the lack of integrity. I like to sleep at night.
Any follow-ups? What do you specifically see your roles and responsibilities are in the budgeting and planning process for the district?
I am the buck stops with me. I'm responsible for making sure that we are above board on everything. We're following through with everything that's in the policies, that we're getting our monthly reports done, that we're not spending things that are not approved, that we are responsible. As a superintendent, that is a major, if not the major role. I think people probably would be a little hard, but caring for people and nurturing people and building the Hanover culture is probably my highest, but there is no playing around with public finance. And so to me, it is intense. It is intense. In fact, what I'm planning to do is almost have a retreat with Pat and kind of just do we're going to spend a few days nailing down what's important with this, what our timeline is. You guys have published a timeline, making sure that we have these things done early if we can. I don't want to mess around with finances in any way. I want that to be beautiful. That's a scary one. Because I mean, taxpayers, they're trusting us. To me, that's huge. So I don't know if you can tell by my emotion, but I really am in my personal finances. I want to make sure that I'm setting up things. I'll give you an example. I'm setting up things so that in the future, what I've done today will benefit me. Here, let me give you an example. When you look at leadership, our building did not have a refurbishing plan for any of our technologies. We bought all these iPads and no one sat down and said, they're all probably gonna go bad in 4 years. We didn't have a fiscal plan of how to replenish them until I got there and we started talking. We said, okay, we can do one grade level a year to replenish so that by the end of 6 years, we're okay. But if you had to redo the whole school at once, there's no financial way we could pull that off. And that would impact all of instruction. So for me, a superintendent with finances is looking at things like planning, future planning. We're looking at things like you asked about facilities. And I have like a couple of things I'll share later, but I thought, when you do an interview, you drive home and you're like, I should have said that. I already have 3 things I'm gonna tell you later, but I'm not gonna do it now because it's not part of this question.
Fair enough. Follow-ups.
Please make sure that if there was a purpose behind the question that even though I answered, I might have missed, poke it. I don't mind asking the hardest questions you've got. I want to open up my whole chest and show you who I am.
So if you are selected, what would be your process for taking over the helm?
That's an 8-turn. Well, as I said, I've created a 120-day plan. Right now, what I'm going to be doing is talking to mentors and asking veterans. Brady Johnson is the guy who kind of showed me the ropes in superintendency. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours. He was part of my PhD program to learn about superintendency. I spent the whole week in North Carolina Statesville, rural district, when they were going through budget cuts and the newspapers were at his door. And I watched him. He was amazing because he cared about people. He had wisdom. So how I would take over the helm, I'm gonna spend some time with Brady Johnson. I'm gonna spend some time with a couple of the other folks that I know who have done. He won, by the way, North Carolina Superintendent of the Year. But he's humble, he won't tell you that. So learning from him is kind of something that really meant a lot to me. I actually love the guy. He would go to a book fair, a spelling bee, a staff meeting at the high school. He was everywhere. People knew him. I went to his office and there was the custodian from the elementary school just talking about his school and how much he loved his school. So he was accessible, visible. He cared about people. These are all going to be the hallmarks. So how I would take over the helm, I would talk to my mentors, build my 120-day plan. Some of the elements you probably want specifics, I know. And my mentor, Joe Mascoro, who's really awesome, she told me, try to be concise because I know you. And I'm like, I know, but I'm trying. I just, my heart is so, I love that. So my 120-day plan, which is in here somewhere, I have specifics, but I don't see my 120-day plan yet. Oh, I must have left it in my back. Oh, no, there it is. Here's some of the specifics that's going to be taking over the helm. Ready? I am going to spend some time with the current superintendent and getting the rundown. Did you want to tell me something?
No, you're good. You're good.
I thought you were like,
Nope.
I'm going to spend some time with the current leadership. I'm going to spend some time with the principals. I'm going to learn. It's a long listening process for me to adapt. It's like going to a new culture, a new country. You have to be very honoring of what's already there. You don't come in with a whole bunch of ideas, try to change the world. If I came here, I would want to earn my Hanover citizenship card. So I want to learn the history. I've already studied that wall right there about the Wigwam School and all that. I'd want to learn first. Some of the other ways I would take over the helm, I would be joining the National Rural Education Association, American Association of School Administrators. I have friendship with the Colorado Rural Education Center. Valerie, she's somebody that kind of discovered me a year ago and said, we need you in rural education. So I connect with her and she would teach. She's already told me if I'm named, get up, spend time with her because she will help me kind of acclimate to all the things that need to happen to make a rural district shine. I would meet with all of you one-on-one. I want to meet with all of you and hear your hearts because you were voted in because you represent people that said, this guy's and this girl's going to tell people what we believe. And I want to connect to that. I would look at all your calendars and learn about all of that process. I would have conversations because you asked me in the screening interview about the cabinet, forming the cabinet. So I think what I would want to do is look at the existing structure, but I don't know if I would just adopt it straight up. Because if I don't feel that there's enough voice from people that need to be at the table, I will expand the academy. I don't know if your family liaison is currently on there, but I think that role needs to be somewhere important to talk about the families in this district. So I would probably do a lot of talking with Pat, because I think she's one of the top leaders in this district, and I would definitely want her to hear my humility that I value the input and the perspective she has. I'm not just saying that to like butter her up or anything. I really believe that, especially someone who's handling probably one of the most important aspects of our organization, which is our finances. Other things that I would do, I want to spend time, a day in the life. I want to even be a student for a day. I want to walk around and see what it's like to be a junior at the high school. I want to walk around and see what it's like to be a third grader. I would look at the initiatives that you have already in place and talk to you about how, is that something you want to abandon? Is that something the district wants to continue? For example, I noticed there's a whole page on the Baldrige model for performance excellence. And it says there are only 9 school systems in the history of the award to have won that award. I was part of Iredell State School Schools in 2008. We won that award. So I know that system from the classroom up. I can start, I know I could actually help this school district be the 10th winner of that award, if that was something the collaborative mind wanted to do. It was a shared vision, and the Baldrige system works. You will not stay at 9% proficient in math if you're using the Baldrige system, I promise you. Because we'll at least tell all the kids answer C every time, and we'll get a higher grade. Just kidding. That was just so as far as taking over the helm, a lot of it has to do with checking in and connecting with all of those affected by the position. And I have, you can see on my notes, and I have actually a system for organizing called the Lotus method, where I put in the green box, it'll say connect to concerns. So in the first box, it's build relationships, and then I'm understanding the concerns. The second one is connect to the concerns. And so I have at least 7 actions that I will take in order to, how do I connect to the concerns of the community? That becomes the priority for the superintendent. I'm not coming in with, here's a list of things that Hanover has to do. I'm coming in with, okay, talk to me about how do you guys feel about your school system? What's the pain points? Where are you hoping to see something that isn't there right now? And I do make things happen. I do help remove pain points and bring inspiration. I can talk to you about what that looked like at Falcon Elementary quickly. So I went into Falcon Elementary, and they had 2 programs for special ed students, separate programs. One was for the emotionally disturbed identified students, and one was for fragile medical identified students. Students have gastrointestinal tubing, wheelchair access, that kind of thing. But we only had 2 classrooms per grade level, and they could have gifted kids, kids with medical fragile needs, and explosive reactive disorder kids, all in one room. And these teachers were trying to manage and balance all of this, and it was very, very stressful. So I advocated for the school and found a way for the district to share the load, because there were some schools that didn't have any programs. We had 2, so we ended up being able to move 1 program. But then I looked at our playground. We had 1 blue swing for any kid that had a wheelchair, any kid that had special needs. There was 1 blue swing out of all of our equipment. And so I advocated, talk to special ed, what kinds of things, teachers, what kinds of things would be great for kids outside. We didn't have the money, but we found the money through a grant, through Title. There's a Title funding stream that you can use for special needs and equipment. We now have 4 pieces of equipment out there because of this initiative, right? And they aren't just a blue swing where, oh, that's only for so-and-so. We bought a merry-go-round that the wheelchair can hook into, but all the kids play together. There's not like, that's the separate place for special needs kids, and that's the place for typical needs kids. We built a playground where everyone played together. So I don't know if you sense my passion in that, but I don't even remember your question anymore. But I think that I wanted to share with you that story because that's kind of my leadership style. That's how
Follow up.
No.
Okay, how do you see the chain of command operating in a district of this size?
For me, there's always needs to be honor and respect along a chain of command. To me, the schools themselves, if there's parent complaints, need to go to the principal and the teachers first. If a parent comes to me and says, so-and-so, my third grade teacher is upset, superintendent, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna ask, have you talked to the school yet? As a principal, my preference is that they talk to the teacher before they come to the principal's level. Because oftentimes, my teachers can handle these things. They're good. The kid, I gotta tell you a story. So one time, this dad was so mad, so angry in my office. My son's being bullied. You're not doing anything about it. And this was the first I'd heard of it. So I said, sir, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Can you tell me some more details? When did this happen? Where did it happen? Who did it happen with? I will get back to you within 24 hours. So I go to the to do my research and investigation because at this time this parent was way too angry to send back to a teacher, and that wasn't really a teacher specific thing. It was just a kid bullying him. There was a little girl in second grade who had Down syndrome who called him poopy pants. That was the story. So I went and I brought the family back in and I talked to the dad and I told him what happened. He was so embarrassed that he had gotten that angry because of this poopy pants. And I said, sir, we are working with her on that. That's just something that she's been kind of guilty of with a lot of kids. She calls them poopy pants, but we have a contract, we're working on it. She's toning it down, but that wasn't bullying. So instead of like going in like drastically, I like chain of command. I like when a teacher can deal with things, the principal can deal with things, and if they can't, I want to involve collaboratively there. If a person comes to you guys and is complaining about me, I would like the opportunity myself to be able to address them, as long as I'm not like threatening to hurt them or anything, ethically. As long if it's a typical thing, I would never hurt anybody, by the way. But if there's a way that I can be able to handle those complaints, and I want to kind of shield you from any kind of stuff that you guys got enough on your plates. Let me take the hits. I can take it. I've taken lots of different hits. So, I'm gonna mark that off because I was gonna say that later. In the blue swing, I got 2 of them.
I'm sure we'll hit the other 2 by the end.
Follow. No. All right. Describe your decision-making process and how your personality plays a role in it.
My decision-making process, I go through I have different tools that I use. One of them is the Nostra model. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Nostra model, but when you're looking at making decisions that deal with change management, I have certain standards that I follow. So I don't know if you want to pass this around, but this is the Nostra model on top. Most changes have to have these factors. You have to, so it slows you down and it makes sure you have all your items in a row. Do we have enough resources? Is there a shared vision? Do people believe in this decision? Do we need any additional training for this decision? What's the ultimate impact of this decision? So a lot of my decision-making process is using the Nostra model, but also using kind of to validate the need for improvement, first of all. And that isn't just on my own brain, it's a collective decision. So like, I handle things with decisions. In my last building, we had something called the grade level improvement plan. I didn't come up with the budget as the principal. I didn't say, here's what we're going to spend money on. I asked the staff, and I'll pass this around. I asked the staff, looking at their data, what do they believe needs to happen in order for kids to improve? This became how I funded the school. I looked at the practitioners requests so my decision-making was based off of input from not my brain, but everybody's brain. We pass this around too. Sorry, again, your steps in. No, you're good. That's authentic, filled in by the staff, not, so you'll see, hopefully there aren't any typos. You know how I hate typos. Anyway, I wrote, my cover letter, I'm going to burn. But next time I'm going to read it twice. I was so passionate when I wrote to you, I just said. Okay, so my decision-making process goes through validating the need for improvement, using data and decision-making, using input from others. And my personality, how does that check in? My personality is a mild ENFP. I can see possibilities that other people might not see and connect things that other people might not connect. How I use that as a strength is I try to connect and make things more efficient and cover more than one potential solution to multiple problems with one solution. And I can tell you a quick story about that, but I don't want to take too long. But my personality, anyway, I use that strength to be a part of a brainstorming process and collaborative discussion on what the possibilities are. I use input from staff to narrow those things down. And if there's something that's not realistic, we don't do it. But at least they have a chance to think through the potential opportunities before we just shut everything. The values in me are part of my decision-making process too. So I'm looking at what is going to inspire the most students in these decisions. How can we become more competitive to other school districts? These are values of mine. I just want to be the best. Like wherever I'm at, I want that school to be the best in Colorado. Everywhere I've gone, I've tried to start doing that. So for us, I want us to be the best rural school in Colorado. I know we're the second smallest according to some of the research that I've done. But what that means to me is that our kids, they're taking careers that they're passionate about. They're learning things on the cutting edge that maybe other districts that can't do that because they're too big. Our size can actually be an advantage. We can actually maybe do things other people can't do. You know, we might be able to take a field trip in a van for a grade level versus a huge big truck that costs so much buses, you know, anyway. What was I going to, oh, the quick example, because I think you need to hear stories behind philosophy. People can give you fancy words, but you need to hear things that happen. When I arrived at one of the campuses that I led, they did an audit and we were 75% out of compliance when it comes to meeting our needs of our special ed students. I am not going to get us in trouble because when you are not meeting IEPs, there's some legal openings that you just left for the whole district. So
As a parent of a student
Yes.
with an IEP, I can tell you that's true.
Yes,
Filed more than one state complaint.
but even more than the idea of protecting a district, I'm more concerned that this child isn't getting what they need. And if they were my daughter or son, I wouldn't be happy. So when I'm leading, every kid is like my child or daughter, my daughter or son. So what we did, this is kind of how like to show you the multiple ways my personality worked in making a decision. We needed to address this. We couldn't keep things the way they were. So we formed a committee and we looked at what factors contributed to the 75% in this step. One of them was our master schedule. Master schedules can be a really prickly thing when we talk about changing it. Okay, I was new in this building. Ooh, it was a prickly thing. But the committees worked together and we worked together and I used my best thinking. We had some really good scheduling people. Do you mind if I take my jacket off?
No, go ahead, please.
So we worked through 3 or 4 potential schedules. What was happening in the building? There was some power stuff going on. There were informal leaders in the building that I didn't know. I was still new. I don't want to say too much because it's a public thing, but sometimes there are people that run the building and they're not the principal. So I had to change the master schedule, which upset such person. And they kind of knew executive directors and stuff. Anyway, I won't talk about all that. What happened was we came up with some different options that modified the master schedule, but it also had to modify personnel. So we ended up creating a new specials that brought STEM into the building for the first time. They didn't have that before. We expanded what kids experienced. At the same time, we fixed the problem for the kids that had special ed needs to be met. Their minutes were met. And kids now had STEM. And we didn't lose too much specials time. And there was like 10 more things. The art teacher got to be part of the rotation. I had felt that there was something happening unethical because my other specialist teachers had regular schedules, Monday, Wednesday. The art teacher had a whole different, they put her on a whole different type of schedule. And she had a K-5 list when my other teachers had a K-2 or 3-5 list. The way they had worked it out, I felt that it wasn't ethical because she was being treated differently than the other specialist teachers. And she was out in a portable and everybody else, so I couldn't sit back. So we figured out it all, it was awesome. People told me this can't happen. We've tried this before, it won't work. You can't do that. We did it. The kids were learning STEM and they were learning extra math. They had an extra math. Anyway, my decision-making process uses if I can find a solution that covers one solution that covers multiple problems at the same time and students benefit, we're gonna do it together. And it wasn't they voted on the schedule. They helped create it and they voted. It was collaborative. I love that question. Oh, that's fun.
So follow up, any follow up, sir?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, knowing that, in our current situation with our school district, our special education representative is placed through BOCES.
Okay,
So yes, it is your building, but not necessarily your decision on the personnel. How do you plan to navigate those waters to not have any type of conflict?
well, I'm pretty personable and build great relationships with people. So BOCES and I will probably be good friends. And the values inside of me will be stronger than anything else. So if there's a misstep or the staff that they're sending us is not meeting our expectations for quality, I will do whatever I can to support her or him and work with developing their abilities. But I will not be afraid to go to BOCES and say, this isn't working. Our students deserve this, this, and this. I'm observing this, this, and this. How can we fix this together? And ultimately, it's the kids that matter. And if they're not getting what they need, we will do something about it. I don't believe in low expectations for any kid. And if somebody, and a lot of times when you talk about low performance, sometimes it does tie into expectations. It's not necessarily the teacher's ability or the student's ability. Sometimes it's what we believe kids can do. I didn't mean to tell you that soapbox, but it's just
Always expect more. You'll be a part of the committee if you get to be a superintendent, you'll be part of BOCES anyway.
okay.
Superintendents in our district are a member of BOCES
Oh, great.
And a board member.
and a board member.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I can get the mail too, the emails too.
Oh, yeah. I'll give them to you.
So I have another follow up for you. Your Myers-Briggs reference earlier. Do you is that like a fully integrated part of the way that you interact with other people? In other words, do you often seek out what their type indicator is and then modify your outward
I understand.
methods?
I understand where you're going. I think that it's very important to know people. And I've used Myers-Briggs, but I've also used the 4M. There's the otter, beaver, the golden retriever one. And I've used just several different ones because sometimes it's even fun for people to know each other. And, that's why you're like that. And so for me, it's important because if I know a person, I can communicate in a way that makes sense to them. For example, as a leader, I can be really quick. Part of my personality is that I think very fast. And I'm always solving problems because I'm competitive and I want us to be the best. I've already invented a new Rural Teacher of the Year award that I want to propose to the Rural Association that we need to recognize more teachers around here. We're gonna get the rural association. See, I already have this in my brain, right? As a leader, what I've learned is I gotta be careful because people can get whiplash. If I come in with a million ideas, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? That is not good leadership. In fact, my mentors have taught me to use my skills to, from the ground roots, that's where change starts. From the voices of students, teachers, staff, not my voice. Changes will come from their voice. So I'm gonna use the strengths of my personality to do that. But like you were saying, I love to know, oh, you're an ISTJ, we're direct opposites. So what I need to do with you is be detailed and concise, which I'm still working on.
INTJ here.
Oh, you know what? I'm a caregiver for a military veteran right now who has PTSD. And he's an INTJ. And he and I get along great because he can think like I do in terms of possibilities. He's an introvert. So I just try not to get him mad too much.
Randy's not an introvert.
Oh.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so, any other follow-ups? All right, so based on everything I've heard, I think the answer to this next question
Has been answered.
has been answered and could be very, very long. What do you know about the elementary school world?
Well, I love the elementary.
Go back to the previous
2
part.
minutes.
I will work on this.
No, it's just, you said a lot about it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's asked and answered.
I think
Many
I really do.
times.
I think you're referring to the previous part where you said the weakness was it's talking.
But if there is something,
I'm kidding.
no, but if there is something that you haven't already previously mentioned, please feel free.
I want you to know that in college, they asked me, what do you want to be? I had 21 ideas. My first year, I eliminated all of them. Like meteorologist, I wanted to be a coach for a football team. I was majoring in PE. They shut down the PE program, so I couldn't major in it. I went to the Department of Education. I said, I don't know what to be. I eliminated all my ideas. And they said, why don't you try elementary? I said, no way. You got a white nose and tie shoes all the time. I can't do that. I ended up being an elementary teacher because I came here to work at Eagle Lake Camp, which is up in the mountains here. And I was around fourth graders, and I loved it. It was so fun. What kind of, elementary, like I said, elementary. The elementary world is deceiving because for those who don't work in education, you don't understand the complexity and how hard it is to get a kid to go from illiterate to literate. There's so many technical skills involved in reading instruction. Your kindergarten teachers, your first grade teachers, those folks are like special forces in terms of literacy. It's amazing. There's also some other things that are happening socially and emotionally. These are foundational years where kids are learning to have confidence in themselves, to see themselves as a contributor, not just a little kid that has to be quiet. You're actually great already. And so one thing that you'll know about elementary schools when you see me walking around is that there's a connection that I have with every kid. I'm gonna know every kid in this district, K through 12, and I'm gonna care about every kid in this district as if they were my own kid. And so they know that. And if you followed me around in the building, hey, Dr. Rob, hey, Dr. Rob. It's because the elementary culture, okay, which people that don't go in the elementary schools don't understand the culture. There's a need for role models. There's a need for people to show genuine attention. So I think the elementary world is one of the most powerful places that you can work. My dad was in the Navy. My grandpa was in the Army. I chose to do this to serve my country. I didn't choose the military because we are having kids that don't have dads. We have kids that are experiencing so many crazy things in media. To have a good role model, that's why I went into this profession. I loved it too, because I could teach science and English and math, all that stuff that I eliminated on my 21 list. I got to do all of it in this classroom. So I was like, hey, I didn't have to sing. That's the elementary world, and there's a lot of cool stuff I can go on. Stop because I passed my 2 minutes.
No, I think that was really good.
Thank you.
All right, so three-parter. How do you plan on using your previous experiences to build on the following? Culture, relationships and trust, academic growth and achievement.
I'll tackle academic growth and achievement first. In academics, I was a part of a district movement that helped shape instruction across a feeder system, high school, all the way down to all the elementaries. It's called the Empower FC Falcon Zone. If you go to D49 and you can see we have we built this. I was an architect on building this. I'll pass this around. So in terms of instruction, there's a lot of wonderful things you can do as a staff to come together around improvement. I want to see this district improve instructionally and academically. I have a track record for exponential growth. I've used Baldrige, I've used the modern teacher process. My dissertation was on hope theory. Hope theory is really powerful. So I'll quickly. Students set goals. Students understand the pathways to reach those goals, and then students have agency that drives them through the pathways to reach their goals. Once you start putting that in systemic fashion, you find growth because kids are owning things. They're sharing the work. A lot of times in the past, the teacher was responsible for the growth and not the growth, and it was all on their shoulders. That's too much weight for one person. But if you can share it with all your students, and they start owning their goals, and they start working and checking themselves, changes everything. You said academics.
Culture.
Culture. In culture, I have learned that it's very important to stay connected and aligned with your people. If you go too far into something that you think is important and you're not connected, it hurts the whole organization. Humbly, I have run with initiatives and sometimes left people. Learned from that. I can't do that. Even if it's the greatest idea I've ever had, and I feel like I'm being Willy Wonka and I can make this great place. No. You've got to connect. That's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my career. And culture is oftentimes celebrating what's great that's already happening. It's oftentimes bringing light to things, finding things to accent that haven't been accented before. So for example, we celebrated Teacher of the Year, Teacher of the Year, Teacher of the Year. But then I would look at my other staff. Why are they like that? Culture, right? So we started talking and we created a paraprofessional award and we created a support staff award. So there were 3 people now being honored. We did that every month, actually, because it was important. There's a lot of hard work going on beyond just the teachers. And so those are cultural things. So how I would do is we would talk about how is it going? What is your morale like? And how are we adjusting with all this COVID and pandemic stuff? And how can we take care of you? Mental health of our staff is very, very, very important. It's not just our students that we need to think about with mental health. So culture to me is paying attention to things like that, having discussions like that. The third one was
Relationships and trust.
relationships and trust. So for me, it's not hard to build relationships. Trust is always a product of small investments, of being consistent, following through, of keeping my word. And it takes time it's like that coin jar in your house where you're going to save up for a vacation. For trust to happen, people have to see me and interact with me and watch me. I remember a teacher, I knew she didn't trust me when I first got hired. She was a little grumpy too, a little bit tough too. So I remember the day she trusted me, and it was a huge day because I was so happy after. Anyway, so what happened was this mama bear came in the building and she was not happy with this teacher, and she was spitting mad. And this lady, I could tell, could get violent, not just yelling. And my little bitty teacher who didn't trust me was standing there taking this blast. And it wasn't a very kind interaction, if you know what I mean. I stood right in the middle and got in the way so she wasn't talking to my teacher like that anymore. And professionally, I said to her, ma'am, if you continue to talk in this manner to my staff, our meeting will be over until you can calm down. She stopped. She calmed down and we had a great meeting. But after that meeting, that teacher loved me. She trusted me because she saw me in action. We can talk on these microphones, we can talk, but until you see somebody prove it, the marble jar is basically what I want to end that with. Because I believe trust relationships happen over time and continue to do what you say you're gonna do, you continue to show that they're important to you, you're not scheming some kind of sneaky thing in the background, you actually genuinely care about that person. And in this Hanover, if it's a family, which I feel like it is, because you guys told me about the story about the selection committee member who was in the Navy. I forgot her name, but she had
Shelby.
actually, Ellen? What?
Shelby.
Shelby. When Shelby moved in and the neighbors drove up to help her unload, if that's anything like the Hanover community, then I'm excited about, I'm already excited about that.
Follow up. All right. As you may be aware, Universal Pre-K is coming to Colorado in the 23-24 school year. With that in mind, describe your experience in early childhood education and what is your understanding of appropriate development for preschoolers?
It's wonderful. I had to evaluate our preschool program and be in the classroom, do classroom observations, coach teachers. And so I have experience in that. I have a daughter who's in preschool, so I've seen excellent example of learning from her. You have a pre-K director that would be the leader in this situation. So I would definitely defer and talk and collaborate with her, just so you know. I'll give you my answer for this question, but that individual in your district will be my guide and I will empower her. For me, when you look at preschool education, the developmental levels have to be a part of every element of your design structure, including things like attention span, including things like hands-on learning, including things like even discipline has to be developmentally appropriate. We want to take whatever's inside those little ones, that curiosity and passion for learning, we want to keep it, we want to preserve it, we don't want to squelch it, we don't want to, we lose it by the time kids are even sometimes in second grade. And I don't want that. So we want to make sure that it's developmentally appropriate, warm, happy, learning is fun. And then we'll work together on what kinds of rigor, and some of this will depend on the exposure to literature students are having at home. If we're coming from scratch, it's a different program than if they're coming in with parents that are reading with them every night. And we might actually have a mix of both. So there will definitely need to be staff development and investment in our pre-K staff. Now, the cool thing is in the last 10, 15 years, that discipline has escalated in its importance. There's master's degrees now. There's a whole bunch of professionalism around that. It's not babysitting anymore like it used to be a while back. So it's a really intense field as well, because there's a lot happening in the brain between. I mean, there's a lot happening in the brain. So my daughter loves school, and I would want Hanover kids to love school in the pre-K world. And you know what? If you're having a bad day, board members or anyone in the community you want to visit, visiting a preschool class will fill up your bucket so fast. They are so precious. Okay, I end my question.
Follow. Okay. Hanover is an SCAP district. Describe your thoughts on our strategic priority placements and how you would support these priorities and what leadership changes you would initiate in the next 3 years.
So for that question, I would have to defer because I'm not very much experienced with SCAP, except that I watched your video and I loved what I saw. If SCAP has to deal with ICAP, which is your career pathways, no? Does SCAP have any?
SCAP is alternate accreditation.
Oh, alternate accreditation. So you guys work through a process to have an approved accreditation. Okay. So I would want to meet with you all and talk about what that looks like and be on board with what we believe as a district needs to happen.
So a pointer to you, I assume you're done with your answer.
Yes, sir.
A pointer to your answer. Last month or 2 months ago at our regular board meeting, Mr. McNerney gave the SCAP overview.
2 months.
2 months ago?
2 months ago.
Yeah, go watch that recording and you will learn a lot about SCAP.
Yep.
All right, this is a really long question. Hanover has developed an instructional assessment, response to intervention, multi-tiered support system, public learning community platform to enhance vertical discussions and support across the district. Describe your experience in leadership with these items and how you would facilitate next year's practices for faculty and staff growth.
Okay, so when I was an assistant principal at Aurora Quest Academy, we had no such system, and it was my responsibility to engineer, architect, design, create such system. It was RTI back then, now they're calling it MTSS. By the end of this work, it was a model system that people throughout the district were coming by to see and study. What I would do, and this is actually one on my 120-day entry plan, I want to study the PLC model, the MTSS models that are already in place. How are the teachers, I want to visit, how are they talking about data? How are they talking about student needs and what they're doing to adjust? I need to learn their levels now, because they may be at mastery levels with PLCs and MTSS, and they might not need any kind of tweaking or help. If I come to a point where I'm seeing that pretty much everywhere I've gone, there has been a need to do some staff development around how to talk about data with protocols, what kind of interventions work really well. How did we set up, and as a, well, I won't be a principal this time, but as a principal, I would ask them, how are you supporting the findings of these committees with structures? Like, we ended up hiring different roles when we could to fill the needs for reading intervention or mathematics intervention. That was a big part of the principal's job. So I would support principals through that process, how they're using the MTSS model, how they're using all the things that you described in that model, which has community. I've seen different models. My favorite model is when you actually involve parents and community in the discussions on interventions that work, haven't worked, how kids respond to things at home versus, I think parents are experts that need to be a part of the table. I've been in other systems where parents aren't involved until the very end and they're just shared, here's what we're going to do. I don't think that is as rich as parents, here's some of the data. Let's talk about what we've seen in the history of this educational journey. What worked before? What works at home? Do you see these things? And I think there's a rich dialogue, and then you create better interventions. To me, if those models aren't strong, you will not see growth. They're just wasting teachers' time. They're wasting everyone's time if they're not strong. For example, I've gone to some of the PLCs, and they're talking about so-and-so's birthday next Thursday and who's bringing the cupcakes. Kids aren't going to grow when we're doing that. But I've been to some meetings, they're so strong. They know not only the child, their strengths, where the gaps are, and how has this intervention been working over the last 6 weeks. When you see that kind of thing, students start to perform, because there's a lot of expertise around that table, and teachers know. We'll try this, okay? We'll try. They have, I mean, especially if you have someone that's been around a little while, they've done a few things. I believe in that system with all my heart. I won't leave without that system.
Follow-up.
Have you helped set up that system like
Yes,
that?
yes, from scratch. There wasn't one at all in the building, and then so what I would set up is we had weekly meetings where we went over data. This is my class, this is how they perform. You guys use, I think, NWEA.
Right.
There's a million of them out there, but you talk about that data. And we also, in the Baldrige system, we use short cycle assessments. So teachers created little tiny assessments that they gave just to check if that one standard was getting better. And those were also part of these data meetings. And so we would have weekly meetings. Parents were invited. We had a list as long as your arm that went for weeks of all the kids we were seeing. We did things with customer service. I sprinkle in, we had name tags for everybody around the room so that if a new parent was in the room, they could tell that was Mr. So-and-so and that was Mrs. So-and-so. So we made it really connect good, well with our families. This system improved student performance. The system improved teacher awareness of where kids were. The weakness in the system I designed was it was all passive. Kids only got on the list if a teacher recommended, which if a teacher said that's too much paperwork, they didn't recommend kids. So a tweak that was made later was we began to run the NWA reports, and that became a non-passive way to be a discussion. Oh, we noticed this student in nonsense fluency words is coming out. Teacher, talk to us about that. So no longer was it a voluntary teacher just joined because they felt they wanted a kid to get better. We used other systems to get kids on the list to talk about. So no one was slipping through the cracks anymore.
What grade was that?
This was kindergarten through 5th grade. Oh,
Really?
no. When I invented it, it was a K through 8 model. So actually.
K through 8?
Yeah, we had secondary students involved.
Thank you.
Any other follow-ups? No. All right, here's a weird one. Have you been contacted by any community members since you submitted your application for this position outside of search committee and the board? And if so, how would you characterize the nature of those interactions?
No, sir.
Okay.
I only made contact with the Hanover volunteer firefighters because I wanted to learn about the community and do my research. And they were great. And I can't wait to eat their breakfast they told me about.
First Sunday of the month.
Yeah.
I'm calling-
Well, now, so they took a big long break with COVID,
Yeah,
but they just started back last month. So,
Oh, I was gonna go to that.
they do all the cooking for you.
all right, last one, last question, and then we'll give you a little free form time. Hit any of those items you haven't had a chance to mention yet. All egos require gratification. What satisfies your ego?
Well, according to Young, just kidding. I think if you're asking me what brings me joy, what makes me feel meaning in life, I'm an encourager, and it's just who I am. I love seeing people dream and start reaching them. And as a principal, I love seeing kids shine. So I felt great if I knew I was part of creating something that now a talent show, right? There was a kid that was just not very popular, not athletic. But when we had a talent show, that kid could sing and that kid shined. And there was something happening in that moment that didn't happen in the other parts of our school. I went home as I filled up all the way. I had a paraprofessional who was talented, I could tell. And I said to him, have you ever thought of being a teacher? And he said, well, I have my degree, but no. I said, you need to think about it. He went through BOCES and became alternative licensure. He ended up winning Teacher of the Year within like 3 years. When he shined, I felt something in here change. I didn't choose this profession because there was something about it for me as much as I want to leave a legacy. I know that one day I'm going to be sitting on a porch drinking lemonade, retired, and I want to make sure that I gave my energy and life to something that mattered. And when I'm on my deathbed, I don't want any regrets. I really do believe that my life is geared towards inspiration. So if that's the ego thing that you're talking about, I guess that's it. And that's precise.
All right, so, now is when you just get to talk about whatever you want to talk about, just for a couple of minutes to summarize whatever it is you want to summarize.
Before you do, I got something to tell you.
Yes, sir.
If you're selected, I'll check you up on every name of those kids because I know them.
Oh,
All
He
of
does.
them.
well,
I love children
yes.
and I get in the school all the time.
Yes.
I'm not in there as a board member either. When I walk in that door, if I don't have that badge, I'm not a board member. I don't want to talk about board.
You're a grandpa.
I'm in there. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm grandpa.
Yeah,
And that's what they'll call me too.
I love it.
I call him that.
Yeah, he does too. But I love kids. I love them. And I know most 90% of their names.
So.
I love
that's what I work on,
preschool.
too.
Like you said, preschool are
We have a phenomenal
fantastic.
preschool program.
I go over there and I get hugs from every one of them. They come running to me, Grandpa.
Yeah,
I love our kids,
yes.
all of them.
You'll do anything for them, right?
Anything.
That's the same thing that I have in me, even if it makes me unpopular sometimes,
It's true.
you know? I got them a piece of playground equipment that looks like a big tree and all the kids climb on it and it spins. You should have heard all the teacher complaints.
Teachers complain.
They're so dangerous. They're gonna hurt themselves. Like, you see those smiles? They are happy. No, they didn't get for you, I know. So, I want to compliment you guys. I've had interviews with different places. And some of the things that I got see, you guys think that I'm always the one being interviewed. But I'm actually analyzing the questions you ask me and the way you talk to me and some of the little comments that you make. I'm actually interviewing you. I got a decision. to make
That's always a
myself.
two-way.
Yeah, I got a decision to make myself. But what impressed me was the stories that you told about how you come together as a community. And that's the kind of thing that I want to be a part of. I know that there's going to be divisions in the community. I know there's going to be naysayers and players. I've dealt with them my whole career. But if you truly have a staff and a group that, like you just said, cares about kids, then that's the kind of place I want to be. And if I mess up and I'm wrong, we'll sit down and talk about it and fix it. I'm not so proud that I can't be corrected. And working with the board, I've not done that before. I was almost hired by a couple schools afterwards, and I was kind of excited about it. But what that means is that I'll be learning a lot. I'll be taking cues, and I want to show you my expertise and how I'm going to help you get the vision that you're talking about to happen. I've done that before. I've helped vision become reality. Kind of think that's part of my thing. I don't want to live status quo. If I feel like this job will just be a job, I won't take it. If I get excited about this job, which I kind of am, if you offered it to me, I would take it. Tell me that already. I know that there's going to be times where there's conflict, but to me, conflict can actually build stronger unity if you work through it together and show loyalty and you're graceful. The biggest word that describes me probably in any of my leadership would be the word honor. In college, I took a class called cross-cultural communication. And one of the main lessons I remember, and it's kind of good because it's been a long time, it's the word honor. When you're in another culture, honor it. Especially in high context cultures where nonverbals, things that you do with your feet matter, honor it. I found actually when you're doing a discipline with a kid, if you use the word honor in your backdrop, changes the whole thing. Even though that kid did something wrong, if you could still show honor as you correct them, there's something that happens inside of them, and their behavior isn't just a one-time, I'm afraid of the principal or superintendent change. They change because they believe that they've done something that they can do better next time. I don't even know what I want to tell you, but I feel peace. And yesterday when I was writing all my notes, I brought my whole world. Oh, I forgot. This belongs to someone in Hanover community. When I went over and I actually went and ran the bases too, just to get a feel for it. This was on the ground, maybe at your facilities, but I'm gonna leave it because this is part of fiscal responsibility. So you don't have to buy a new glove. This is somebody from your district's glove. I'm gonna leave it for you. I wanted to bring that. I don't know. What if you could ask me anything else, what would you ask me? What can I tell you about myself? What do you want to know? That gives you freedom from the HR stuff.
Wow. You said that there were 3 items. You said you had already gone over one. Were there the other?
He had gone over 2
You got the poopy pants
and the blue
swim.
chair. Yep. Blue chair.
The other one I was gonna tell you is an example of your questions were really hard to answer sometimes right on the spot, like the weakness one. I never want to sound like the interviewee who says, I'm just too hard of a worker and I'm just never strong. That's the old, I want to be authentic. So I was trying to tell you one that I thought was authentic. Another one that I've been working on because I'm transparent is I've gotten feedback that sometimes my communication is not up to what people desire. So my work on that is I've got several books I'm reading on communication and I ask questions what it would look like. But the problem when you tell somebody communication is lacking is that word doesn't communicate what it means. So one time I had a newsletter that was too full of information and they were like, oh, we don't have time to read it. The next time, oh, you didn't give us enough information. That newsletter just needs to have more information. So I feel like I want to grow. Sometimes it's in communication. So I answered that. I didn't think I answered that one the best I could. And then the last one I was going to tell you was about a music class and how I worked with a staff member that needed accountability, because you asked me that question, right? Whew. So I'm a teacher in the hallways, and I get kids coming up all the time talking about stuff, and they did not like music. No, I love it though. I think students need to be well-rounded. They need to have the arts in their life. They need to have athletics in their life. They need to have academics in their life. They need to have altruism in their life. They need to care about other people. I think kids need these 4 A's. So I'm an advocate for all specials classes, and music needs to be good. When I walked in there, all the kids looked like they ate a lemon. Their faces. And I walked in there and they were bored. So I asked the teacher to come talk to me. And I said to her, I want to help in any way I can to support you. I'm getting reports from kids that they don't like music right now. Can we fix this together? And I said, one of my recommendations is to talk to them. We created a board on the back that says what I love about music, what I wish could be better or different. She went back to class and she said, Dr. Roth's going to fire me. To the kids. I had little 5-year-olds coming up in the hallway saying, you're going to fire my music teacher. Don't fire my music teacher. I said, ma'am, I said, go eat lunch. And I went and talked to the teacher, but that's her opinion. That's what she thought. And I didn't, I left it alone. I did. She ended up she found a full-time position she was happy with. But it shows you to me anyway, it shows you kind of some of my leadership. And that I've had to face stuff that wasn't always accurate. People saying stuff that isn't always accurate. And so what I guess what I'd offer to you guys is, if there's these types of situations in our district, say it's a principal, I would want to invest and work with them. I'd want to show them that I care about them. I'd want to build a good relationship with them. To me, this job is fantastic because you have a whole generation you get to work with, K through 12. And the systems we put in place to unite, you asked about uniting, I think you have sworn. I'd like to see how that's working and see if we need to tweak something with that. Because character is really, you could do that K-12. You know, we invest in character and it's going to come out in your community. When I was driving on Hanover Road, I did the wave thing and the dude waves back at me. I'm like, duh, that's just like my old hometown. I used to wave when you drive by. Oh, I want to talk to you forever, but you guys are going to have to.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
And I guess it's authorized. So I can't ask the question of the other finalists because of the actual question. So having never been a superintendent before, what do you think? I mean, you got a really good depth of experience in K through 8. And now you're going to be potentially a superintendent. How do you jump that cavern?
First of all, you need to know it's not something that I just impulsively came up with. It's a long-term goal of mine to be a superintendent, college professor, and then after I retire, an actor. Just so you know. They always need grandpas in movies. So how am I going to jump it? Just like I jumped from being a teacher to a teacher coach, just like I jumped from being a teacher coach to assistant principal, just like I jumped from being a principal to a principal of a very established, strong school, flagship school. I connect with those already in the place and honor them and learn from them and be humble and take lessons and take my lumps and grow. 2, I've got a network of people that I talk to that have done superintendent jobs before. So they'll be helping me, right? They're like right with me. I'm not by myself. I know I have the heart. And so for me, I've already got the foundation and the prerequisites. If you have a good heart, it's going to impact throughout the district. I know it will. If you have a team that works with you, and if you're connected and I like being in teams. I don't like working by myself. So I would want to be on your team, and I would want the instructional staff and the principals and the A team to be a really strong team. Where we laugh and stuff. Because like I just heard when we were in the room, with your wife. We were laughing, talking about different things that they've had to do. And it was fun. I want to have fun. I don't want to live a life where I'm always stressed and hating life. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy while it is still serious, because I want to see kids grow and I want the system to be better. I want our kids to grow. I'm sorry. We cannot do 9% in math. That's a gateway subject. All of the things on your chart that show like career pathways, you can't really do any of them if you're not mathematically there. And we can start as a foundational stuff in K-3, build up your intermediate and build up. I've seen it done, and that needs to happen. You cannot have a system that has failing math grades. Hanover deserves better. And we can even tie it into things that kids live with. If they're a rancher kid and they're dealing with, we can tie real life math. There's so much math in ranching. So I'm excited. I want to tour ranches. I want to learn about that. I might get cowboy boots and a belt and a buckle. Somebody's gonna have to show me all this stuff, but I'm gonna do it.
You speak Spanish?
A little bit, yes. I love Spanish. I used to do bilingual family meetings, but I'm out of practice. I thought I was gonna marry a Spanish lady once, then I could be really good at practicing it, but that didn't work out. She picked another guy. But anyway, I love Spanish.
Awesome. Anything else?
Anything on all
All right.
So
that? I got that.
So,
Yeah, he tries now and then.
He's fluent.
He's
let me think
good.
how I'm gonna work.
I've been on the phone with him. He's talking to his workers. He's really good.
I know he's good, I know, but I like to pick
So
on
you've told a
Paul.
lot of, you say I'm gonna tell a story. But in reality, your story is not a story, it's an answer.
Cool.
Okay, but when you think about separating stories from facts, sometimes you hear stories, it's not always.
I'm trying to illustrate what I.
But no, I'm living, so. Do you believe that storytelling is actually a fundamental part of education?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe that writing is foundation. And you tell a lot of stories, you can do all kinds of writing.
I see that you wrote a book.
Yes. You saw?
I read it in your cover letter.
Oh, thank you.
And it was regarding suicide prevention. And that is near and dear to your heart, it seems.
There was a student in second
correct?
grade in my building who his big brother in middle school took his life. And I walked through classrooms and just scanned, I'm not always trying to look at the teacher. It's not a get you. I'm actually trying to see how our kids are doing. I know every new kid. And this kid was sitting there like his own. He's second grade. He's a little boy. He's 7. He didn't want to live. He could tell you was just in. And I was mad at myself when I went home. All we do is watch the news and react to these stories. When are we going to do something proactive? We got to do something beyond just feeling bad. The whole school system can do a lot more than it has been to help kids feel good about who they are, no matter who they are. And all the differences that we have in the building.
So emotional and mental support is very important.
Very important. Things like racial equity and things like that matter. Because if you are in a room of kids that don't look like you and you're the token kid of whatever it is, there's a different feeling you have. And majority, we might not always understand this, but if we listen, we build connections, we care about people, we build relationships. So I wrote that book because I gave it out to every safety patrol member. I gave it out to kids. So I was walking through a class once and I saw a little girl and I knew she had suicide ideation in the past from the counselor. And I just would go up and say, good morning, and how you doing today? And how's your work? Oh, that's a great story. I just do little stuff like that because I really am genuinely interested. When you're in a classroom, pretend like you got a bucket of popcorn and this is the movie. And you sit down and enjoy and ask questions. Hey, how'd you come up with that character? Wow, that's really cool. They really did that. And we just talk. So I wrote this book because I wanted to show kids there's something to live for. The 4 A's is in the book. I want you to live to be athletic. So even if you don't think you're athletic, we can find something, even if it's bowling. You can be artistic. Even if you don't think you're an artist, maybe you're a comedian. That's comic arts. I want you to be academic. Even if you think you're a jock, we can figure out ways to get you into learning. And I want to teach you to be altruistic. That's in the book. And I named it Lifecraft because it's about Minecraft, which is a popular game for kids, and I wanted it to take.
To be
ideas.
relatable.
Yeah, it's relatable. And I'm not talking about this because it's some kind of commercial or I'm trying to sell something. I'm not. I give my book away. I've spent hundreds on it and I give it away because it's more important to save a life to me than ever making any kind of money. So, thank you for asking me.
No, I thought it was amazing. So I thought it was worth mentioning.
Awesome. Anything else? All right, that brings us to 4.0 adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, sir. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned at 5:49 PM. Oh, hey,
Yeah.
I appreciate
we'll
your time,
see if we can
guys.
get that to Chuck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for applying.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
I want to talk about it. Come on with it.
You should see his house. He has a whole shed or
I went to Trinity